Twice.
I might need to turn their microphone off.
Can everyone mute themselves, please?
Okay, I'm going to start. Hi, everybody. Got a lot to get through today, so I'm just going to start with roll call, and then I'm sure people will keep joining as they are available. So is Jenica McCampbell here today?
Nope.
Okay, Dave, I saw Dave and Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Scott Winters, I believe I saw Scott. Hi, Scott. Kathy Austin, she's been in meetings all day. Not here yet. She should be. Audrey Allen, I believe I saw.
Yep, here.
Hi, Audrey.
Hi.
Jesse Russell.
I'm here.
Hi, Jesse.
Hi, Pauline.
And Karna, I'm not sure if she's making it today. Matt Gillette. Not yet. Moe.
I think Moe may have had some challenges connecting. She was in the lobby twice, so hopefully she's here. It looks like she's here, but
no.
oh, good. Whew.
There she is. Hi, Moe.
But yeah, back.
Alexis.
Also here.
Hi, Alexis. Ryan Jennings. No Ryan yet. Bill Bernardi. I believe I heard his voice.
I'm here.
Hi, Bill. Sarah Santa.
Hi, Pauline.
Hi, Sarah. And Mike Walker. I see Mike.
I'm here.
Hello. All
Hello.
right. So got yeah. All right. So let's see if I can share my screen. I think I've done this enough where it would be easy. Which is weird. I don't even see the button. Oh, there it is. All right, can we see the beginning of a PowerPoint? And I'm gonna get it to be the big screen. Is that better?
Looks great. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. So a couple topics I wanted to cover today before we dive into the draft. Short-term rentals and our middle housing that we're proposing amendments for. I want to touch base real fast on townhomes and lot sizes and the density requirements that are being proposed, and then of course review the draft. So we have had some council interest in asking this question, and it's timely, and we have a good group of people here, I think, to provide some guidance on possible amendments. I think we're all very familiar with short-term rentals and what the requirements are. Some of you probably more than I'm even familiar with the requirements, but the main thing is that we are going to have a more flexible code for, the plexes and townhomes and cottage clusters. And the way the short-term rental code is written today is that the spacing distance, that 250-foot space between short-term rentals, is between properties. And so if you have, let's say, a quadplex, all 4 of those units today can be short-term rentals because they're on the same property. So I wanted to get some numbers out there just to give the group an idea of, how many applications we have. And these are approximate. We're still trying to tighten them up some, but currently we have 1,047 approved short-term rental applications. And of those, there are 50 properties, which doesn't seem like a lot, that have short-term rentals on them. But of those 50 properties, they include about 107 individual short-term rental applications. So again, you could have a duplex and 2 of the units are, or both of the units are short-term rental, but it only counts as 1 property. So the question and discussion for the group, and I think we allocated 5 to 10 minutes for this particular topic, is whether or not there is support, and this is just for plexes, townhomes, and the cottage clusters and also accessory dwelling units, because we have a lot of properties that have a house and an ADU on them, and they're both short-term rentals. Whether or not there's interest to limiting those type of properties to allowing only one of the units on site to be a short-term rental versus all of the units. And I can't see any hands, so Lynn, I'll let you help me with that if there's any discussion.
None so far, but let's give it a minute. I'm guessing. Oh, who is that? Is that Mike? Yeah, Bill, then Mike. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I have strong feelings about STRs. One of your great new interactive map tools allow us to see how many STRs have been approved versus, let's say, mental housing. And I've done the work right. We've actually issued 771 STRs in 4 years, 2016, 17, 18, and 2020. At the same time, we've only issued, or the city has only issued 441 middle housing type buildings. We're losing ground. So whatever we can do to limit STRs, that is severely handicapping the city's ability to provide workforce housing.
Thank you, Mike.
Bill, and then we'll do Audrey after that, and Lisa.
Yeah, I think everyone was surprised to discover that the code actually uses the term properties to define this 250-foot, exclusionary zone. And I think there's widespread support for the notion that the word should be permit, not properties. In other words, there should be 250 feet between permits. And that would be a simple way to clear it up for everyone. There'd have to be some accommodation for the properties that already have multiple applications, but at least it would stop that going forward. I don't think it's what anyone intended at the time the code was written. I don't think it was discussed, and I've found over time people are very surprised to find you can have multiple permits on one property, whether it's a house and an ADU or a triplex or whatever. So I would definitely be in favor of changing it, and I think a simple change to one word would accomplish it.
Thank you, Bill. And a couple of things. I think you're right. I don't think the overall intent was to allow multiple short-term rentals on one property. We would keep the word property versus between units, because we have no way to measure between units. We do have a way to measure between properties. And for this particular update, it would be, again, for the ADUs, the plexes, townhouses, and cottage clusters developments. And then this would be going forward. We have talked to our legal department about it, and it wouldn't be retroactive. Like if there's already a house and an ADU and they have their short-term rentals, they keep them, they can transfer them or do, whatever type of, when they sell it, it stays, or however they're figuring it out how to do that. This would be going forward. So if you built a new house or a new ADU, or if you just come in and you want to do a short-term rental, you don't have any approval on your property, once this code's adopted, then this restriction would apply to that property. Who was it? Was it Audrey?
Audrey, then Lisa.
Okay.
Yeah, just wanted to throw in a quick, I really appreciate, limiting those applications and allowing people who own a property to have a short term to help supplement income, but to kind of limit it so it's not investors just putting it in and having a bunch of short-term rentals without having workforce housing. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Audrey. And then Lisa?
Yeah, thank you. I'm absolutely in favor of this. We know in Century West that we've got a significant issue with illegal STRs, for example. And so anything that we can do to try to stop this and also limit the number of STRs with the middle housing, I think is really important. I did have a question for those 50 properties currently, if their permit expires. So, if they take their short-term rental off the market, and somebody decides to make that a permanent home and they let their permit lapse, does that mean that they wouldn't be able to get this back, so that they would move into compliance?
Right. So, and I'm not the expert on the short-term rentals. Fortunately, I started right after that code was worked on. But if it lapses, another one can open up within 250 feet and it goes away anyway. So in that case, yes, if it totally lapses, it's gone. The one that we're looking into is if they don't lapse, but they sell it to the new owner, and the new owner is buying it because they want the short-term rental on it. It doesn't technically lapse. They just come right in within 1 minute of them canceling. And I don't know if we have a sufficient way to void that or to say no. So I'm working with legal on that particular situation. But if it truly lapses and, another one opens up within 250 feet, or they just never come back in and it's void, then yeah, they'd be subject to the new rules. Was there any other comments? Because if not, we can, I'm hearing majority of support, but I want to take a vote just to be real clear on this.
No other hands.
Okay, perfect. So raise your hand if you're in support of these changes. And this is only for people that are on the House Bill 2001 Stakeholder Advisory Group that were part of the roll call that I did call earlier.
We got 8 hands up.
You need to click on raise hand.
Right, you click on the raise hand.
Correct.
And sorry,
Dave,
but it looks like we have a majority.
Exactly. I was going to say, I'll just add you to the list of folks. So that gives us 9 in favor, which is clear. And you all are getting quick on the draw with those hands. Well done.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next one. So the draft that goes out to the public will include these changes, just so you know. Okay, so townhome and density. I was working on the draft and realized that we talked about minimum lot sizes, and that is this column here for the townhomes. This is only about townhomes. And so we did the average, which is allowed by the OARs and model code. So it's a minimum average of 1,500 square feet for the low density standard and medium, and then we did 1,200 average for the high, since that's what we have today. The one difference between this type of middle housing and the others is that you can have a maximum density. And so what we're proposing, and I think it's needed just so people, that it keeps it within somewhat consistent with the zone that it's in. And hopefully I can explain this okay. So in this first yellow column, this is the Bend Development Code today, the current maximums. So in the low density, you can have 4 townhomes per acre. In the standard, you can have 7.3. Medium, you can have 21 townhomes per acre, and high is 43. And then if we do our current lot sizes, the code would allow even more than what I'm showing here in the yellow. So basically it would allow, if you did 1,500 square foot lots, and this is not taking into consideration streets, but in the low, standard, and medium density, you could actually have 29 townhomes, whereas today you can only have 4 and 7.3. So that's a significant jump in the number of townhomes. And it's still significant with what I'm proposing over here. And this is what is allowed in the model code, but to still put some cap, recognizing that we're definitely significantly reducing the lot sizes for townhomes, but to have a cap. And so the cap would be 16 in the RL, and this is the most we could cap it at. You cannot go any lower, I guess, unless you did the alternative siting and design. And then the standard and medium, the cap on the density would be 25, which is still way more in the RS than we can have today. And then in the medium, it's still more than what you could have today. And then high density residential would just be exempt because you can have, already 43 townhomes per acre if you wanted to. So I just want to make sure if there's any comments or questions on this. If not, I would just take a poll vote. But I just want to see if we're okay placing a cap on it to kind of keep it, because these are such small lots. I hate to use the word compatible, but somewhat compatible with the zones that they're in.
No
No
hands
hands?
yet. I think we might be ready for a vote.
Okay, so if you're in support, Mike.
Oh, wait, Mike, yeah.
Might be muted, Mike.
Sorry, I got to do two things here. Minor objection. We're here again, we're asked to look at something with numbers on a table without really seeing what that physically looks like in any conceptual site plan. It's just, I'm just pointing it out. It's a minor objection.
And we wouldn't have a site plan in the RL, RS, or RM for this because we would not allow 16 or 25 today. The only site plans I would be able to provide is what is currently allowed today.
No, my point is, you're asking us to decide whether this is a reasonable amount, but we're just looking at numbers on a chart. And how many of us really can see what would that look like in a site plan? I'm just pointing it out. You're asking a decision that relies a lot of faith in numbers on a chart versus a conceptual site plan to help us visualize just what this means.
Okay, I appreciate that. And what I can say is I can't, unless we did the alternative siting and design, and I don't think we can for density, so I'd have to check with Ethan. This is the lowest we could go. So is there any other comments, Bill?
Yeah, it looks like Bill.
Yeah, just for clarification, I think you're absolutely right. These are the lowest numbers the rules now allow. So
Right.
I don't think we could choose say 12 for RS or something. And my understanding was that this was sort of a mandated maximum. Is it possible to not have a maximum for townhomes?
It is possible.
Oh.
So the way we drafted it currently is we are just relying on our proposed average lot sizes, this column here, and we don't have a maximum. But when I started looking at it, comparing to how many units today you can get versus if you did 1,500 square foot lots, it could be up to 29 units today in these three zones, whereas today we can only do 4, 7.3, and 21.7. 29 seemed like a significant jump to me, so I thought it might be prudent to at least put a cap in these zones. And granted, you probably wouldn't get, well, I don't know, 25 when you have an acre, but 20 to 30% goes to right of way and street improvements. So I don't know if you ever get 25, but at least you have a cap of how many you could do per acre.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with doing that. I don't know where the state got these numbers or if they're practical, to Mike's point, but it's better than nothing. I have to say that I'm still confused, I guess, on how density maximums are going to be applied in a practical way if there are maximums for certain types of housing and not for certain others. So if you're, if normally you could have 100 units and you build single family, you're doing 100, you're limited to 100. But if you're doing single family and duplexes, can you now have 100 single family and 40 duplexes? I just don't understand how that calculation is going to, work going forward. When we have, several of these types now that are exempt from any maximum. And
right.
then these townhomes and single family homes will be subject to the maximum. I mean, can you conceptualize that?
No, and the planners have talked about, it's going to be difficult for sure. And that brings up a good point with this density on townhomes. I guess you could, and maybe we just don't even have a density for townhomes since we don't for all the others, except that these are much smaller lots than the other types of uses that we're talking about. You could limit it to just a townhome development. So if you come in and the person's only going to do I don't know, 3 acres of townhomes and they're not mixing in duplexes and quads or single family, then we would use the max.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's something that's going to have to be fine-tuned with practical experience going forward.
Yeah, especially
because
mixing in the single family.
It seems kind of confusing how you're going to add, one type that has a maximum with other types that don't have a maximum. I don't know. It just seems confusing. So in any case, I would support having, using the state's sort of recommended maximum here.
Thank you, Bill. You brought up some good points. Maybe we limit it just to townhome developments. Sarah?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there isn't a cap that we could put on the RH, just even carrying forward the 43. Is there a reason that we couldn't carry that forward?
I have to look. It was so high. If there's another comment, we can go with that. I have to.
Can I just mention, this is Bill again, that HB 2001 doesn't apply to RH in Bend because single family homes aren't allowed in RH.
Right. That is true. And for the other zones, what you look at for Sarah in the group is that you must allow 4 times the maximum density allowed for single family. So that's where we get the 16 in RL because it's 4 times or 25, whichever's less. So in this case, we get to use 16. 7 times 4 is 28, so 25 is less. And then 4 times 21 was 80, I don't know, 4 or something. So again, we use 25. So 4 times 43 puts you at 120, 160 something units.
Which just isn't practical, right?
Right. And it's, you wouldn't use 25 because that's less than 43. And also, like Bill said, and if you did a whole acre, just bear with me for 1 second. I'm doing a little math. If you did an acre and not even taking into consideration streets and each lot was 1,200, you'd only get 36. So you'll probably not ever get 43 unless.
Okay, I just wanted to ask just in case.
No, it's a good question.
Thank you.
Colleen, Ethan has a hand up, if that's okay if he jumps in before we move to.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, I was actually just going to say that same point, Pauline. You have a functional maximum of townhouses that you can actually achieve in a lot because the minimum lot sizes are such that you just, 164 times 43, 172 units per acre just is not, you can't achieve that because you have to have 1,200 square feet per townhouse development. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that typically when you're using maximum density to regulate the number of units, it's really just tied to the minimum lot size of that proposed development. So in terms of how a city would use maximum density to regulate townhouses when they don't have a maximum density that they're using to regulate any other of the middle housing types, it doesn't really, the overall development potential of that subject acre is not how that maximum density standard is actually used. It's used at the time of development proposal to determine, can you actually build what you're proposing just based on our maximum density. It's not an overall counting all the units in the subject acre. I hope that made sense.
Thank you.
Well, based on some of these comments and your comment, Ethan, I'm wondering if we even need the maximum units because Bill brought up a good point. I mean, we're not having it for the duplexes, triplexes, quads. And it could get tricky trying to regulate density for townhomes when we're not regulating it for other types of uses except for single family detached. Which
again is just a way to regulate the basic, the minimum lot size of that proposal.
So I'm going to go to a vote just because we need to move on. And I'm sorry that if I confuse everyone, but raise your hand if you are not, oh gosh, how do you say it? Raise your hand if you're in support of not having this maximum density. So keep it the way we've already proposed, just use lot sizes. So raise your hand if you're not in support of this maximum density.
So that would be no density limits
Right.
for townhomes generally. If you don't want density limits, put your hand up, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Lynn. You said it better than I did.
We're at 5 people now, so not quite 6, 7. There it is. Okay, that's now up to 9. Clear majority.
Okay. All right. Sorry. I'm glad I brought it to the group so we could all talk about it out loud. And now we can move on to the next one. Oh, this I just wanted to bring to attention, and for even Lisa and Mike and everybody that just worked on the public meeting changes. This came up in our staff meeting today. So this is just I just wanted to bring it to the group's attention, and it's something our staff's been talking about for a while. This has nothing to do with House Bill 2001. But in our public meeting notifications, I wanted to let the group know that we're going to add this requirement. So many of us are aware that when you have a certain type of application, you have to hold a public meeting with the neighborhoods before you submit your application. And this is only for certain types of applications, like a subdivision or a conditional use permit. Sometimes those public meetings are held a long time before they actually go through and submit their application. And we would like to put a time frame of 180 days. So you have to hold your public meeting and submit your application then within 180 days from that public meeting. And if it's not submitted within that 6-month time frame, you have to hold another public meeting. And this is the same amount of time that we use for our water and sewer analysis and our transportation analysis. So 6 months is consistent with what we use for other types of submittal requirements. And I just wanted to make sure the group was aware that we're going to propose this change. So you didn't see it in your packet. This just came up today.
Colleen, do you want questions on this? It looks like Mike has a hand up, or should we move on to the next section?
That we can take I think I allocated like a minute to this.
Okay. So. Mike, you are the chosen one then.
I can do this. I can do this. I'm in favor of what's being said. I have seen examples where the meeting was held and then the application wasn't deemed complete well past this 180 days. The Evergreen Apartments next to the pavilion is an example. They failed on 2 attempts to get their traffic study approved, which caused this ongoing delay. So I like what you're doing. That's it.
All right, thank you, Mike. And okay.
You said some types of applications. Which ones and why? Why not all 7 types of applications that require public hearings?
Oh, it is, Mike. So it's all the applications that require public hearing.
Perfect.
Clear. All right, Karna, you get 30 seconds. Sorry, I really want to make sure we get through everything.
I don't like it. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. All right, well, I can, this is going to be proposed in the draft, and then as we go through the public hearings and stuff, Karna, then that would be a good time to participate. All right, so next steps for this, I just want to make sure that the stakeholder advisory group's aware of the next steps, and then we're going to dive into the draft. But so today is.
Can we vote on that, or no? We can't vote on that.
It's not really related to House Bill 2001, but we can do a vote. So if you're in support of having a 180-day time frame, which is the same time frame that we use for our water and sewer analysis and transportation analysis, if you're in support of requiring the neighborhood meeting to be held within 6 months of submitting the formal application, please raise your hand.
7 so far. Let me just make sure.
8,
It
9.
looks like, okay. So then that's our majority.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Karna, for making us vote. I should have. Okay, so schedule. Today's got to be the last meeting. I know we have a lot to get through. Month of May is our public outreach. So the draft will go out to the Bend Development Code update group, as well as everyone that has been emailing me or anybody else to ask for a copy to review it, provide some high level comments on it. We are looking at scheduling the Planning Commission work session for May 24th to see, to get feedback from the work session. And then June 15th is when I submit the draft to the Department of Land Conservation and Development as required by the grant that we received. We're looking at Planning Commission hearings in July, and then City Council would be in August. And the hearing dates are a little bit subject to change, but I just want to make sure some dates are out here. And I think we are going to aim for the May 24th Planning Commission work session. And then here's a file number now that we've set up on CityView for those that want to share it. And then on there is the draft that we're working off of today. And then on Monday, I will try and get the draft out to start our public outreach, and I will post the updated draft on CityView as well then. So I see 3 hands. Is that to discuss the schedule or? Okay, we can discuss the schedule. I didn't allocate any time to this, but we can do about 2 minutes and then we need to move on.
Okay, so Sarah is first.
Yeah, Pauline, I just was curious of what the public outreach plan is.
So what we're going to do, part of the public outreach has included the stakeholder group. So we've had the NLA participate, we've had the Planning Commission participate, and the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee actively participate on the stakeholder advisory group so that they could keep their respective committees informed on the draft and the changes. So we've been doing that now for about 6 or 7 months, or since, about December. And then now that this group has worked on a draft, it will go out to the Bend Development Code update group and other interested people, which includes about 130 people so far. And there'll be more, I'm sure. And then we'll have a Planning Commission work session, which is open to the public.
Okay, have you seen Eugene's outreach plan? It just seems very much more transparent.
I have seen it, and we did not go that route. We instead used a stakeholder advisory group to gather feedback and information. And again, we included the committees on our stakeholder advisory group so that they could keep their committees and people informed on our proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I think we're down to like 30 seconds again.
Okay, I got 2 questions. They'll be quick. First of all, the May 24th is a hard date for us as land use representatives of neighborhood associations. We have to somehow now gather up everything from today, assuming we get through the document, and then transmit that report to that, not as advocates, but as a reporter would. This is what's happening. And to get that out, get information back, it's going to be very hard to do that and provide comments back by a May 24th Planning Commission work session. Point number 2, Ethan is online, so I have to ask Ethan, what's the magic of June 15th? There was a delay in getting the middle housing OARs approved. Why is June 15 hanging over our heads? Isn't it just a matter of asking for an extension? That's it.
So I'll let Ethan answer that part, but so May 24th is just a work session. There will be a public hearing, so that will be tentatively in either end of June, probably begin sometime in July. So that will buy you another 4 to 6 weeks to inform your neighborhood associations. And then in August would be the city council one. So that's quite a ways off to be able to inform people and then give them an opportunity to participate at the public hearings. And then Ethan, is he gone?
Pauline, I just wanted to say at last council meeting, council asked if this could move any faster.
Yes, they definitely did that. And I'm going as fast as I possibly can, but at the same time, I do want to respect May for giving people an opportunity 4 weeks to, or at least 3 weeks. We'll have the work session on the 24th, but to review the draft. And so since Ethan's not here, I did ask for an extension on the grant. I did not hear back, but this is tied to their budget, and they have to submit their budget by the mid to end of June. So you cannot get an extension.
So, Pauline, if it's okay, I'm going to suggest that we move forward. I think that there's, I think we have been hoping all along, and I feel like that's happening really well with some groups, that this stakeholder advisory group will help prep each of your respected committees or other folks that you interact with. That's part of why you're on this group. I know it seems like NLA has been doing a tremendous job of that and making sure that folks are coming along with what's going on, even if that's not how they would choose to proceed. Yeah, certainly happy. I think Pauline and I were talking before this meeting about sort of the differences with this code that is in large way determined by the state versus code that we decide the policy for on our own. And so I think the framework for this is really more implementation, not should we or shouldn't we. That's how we've been treating it because of the state mandate. For better or worse, that's where we are. But more than happy to continue to work with y'all and get that word out the best we can going forward. So, okay.
All right, thank you, Lynn. Okay, so now we're on to the draft. Can we all see the screen? Probably needs to be a little bit bigger, maybe.
We're seeing your like notes slide kind of, not the presentation mode, but.
Okay, let me close. Let me stop sharing for a moment.
Notes was the wrong, but the sort of what you would type into, not the sort of pretty picture that comes up when you hit slide share.
Okay. So now I'm trying to share the actual draft. I think you can see it now.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, so what I did is I went through and highlighted areas that are relative to House Bill 2001 for us to go through. I'm sure you saw a lot of changes. We are taking out the word family because we are talking about units. So this is just a catch on the very beginning to make sure when we send this off to Code Publishing, who does our, they post everything online, that they go through the entire code and help us take out the word family and change it to unit. So in our BEN comprehensive plan, part of the changes that are required is to make sure our policies are consistent with House Bill 2001. And I tried to go through and find all the policies that needed changed. But in the very beginning, and DLCD, I think, provided this highlighted part's almost a catch-all to say that if there's any inconsistencies, that House Bill 2001 controls over the policies if they're inconsistent. And I'm going to keep going on this. I didn't think we needed to go through the policies because they really just bring them into compliance, removing densities, making sure quadplexes are included. And then the yellow part, I just need to renumber once the code gets updated from the Southeast Area Plan. Was there any comments on the definitions? And I think we allocated about 2 minutes to this. Kathy?
Yeah, in terms of area, I noticed that it's been changed from the exterior to the interior of the walls in all of the locations where it refers to the floor area. Yeah, right. Instead of external face, it says inside of and I was curious as to why, and I'll just say the standard for those of us architects is to measure the exterior face of stud. And I mean, it's possible to do this. It's just odd that it would be switched. And so I was just curious why this is being changed.
So this is how we measure accessory dwelling units. And floor area is going away, floor ratio. So we thought, one, just to be consistent with how we're already measuring accessory dwelling units, and it actually allows for bigger units. This came up on, I think, our small dwelling units where you can do like 600 or 800 square feet. And once you measure the wall, include the walls inside, that takes up 50 to 100 square feet of livable space.
It
So,
does, I know.
Yeah,
I
and I
figured
know
that,
it's a little bit harder to measure, but it's just to be consistent with ADUs and to provide a little bit more floor area.
well, with our new CAD programs and all, we can do this. It's just, it's not the standard how we would normally do area, and that's why, but okay, I'm fine. I just wanted to bring it up that it was odd, but I'm understanding where you're coming from now. Okay.
Good catch, Kathy.
Mike?
Yes, I have to raise a small red flag. You blew right by an important policy 5-56 on page 2. It is more than what you describe. It is taking out that scratching to assure the development integrates with existing neighborhoods in which it's permitted. Now, I know we're going to see that more in the development code. It's kind of reverse of the normal process. And as a land use chair, I have to report. I have to report that the comprehensive plan, which is gone in great detail, and a land use education plan that Pauline, growth management, and NLA is working hard together. Ironically, we are looking right now at a 2-page document that hypes how a great job is done every time we update the comprehensive plan. And a lot of work goes into it. And this type of change is going to be a significant change to the comp plan. The blueprint, which supposedly helps us create the vision that we have for Bend. So we're going to get into it in the development code, but I think we just can't assume that this is just, change our code, our comprehensive plan, after we're trying to teach our community how important the comp plan is.
So Mike, I have no problem keeping that part, to assure that development integrates with existing neighborhoods, which it's permitted. It just has to be clear and objective. And that's basically what we've been doing with the garage window and front door standards. So
yeah, this is kind of a minor thing because we're going to be seeing similar changes in the code. So it's sort of the cart in front of the horse. Normally you set the policies, then you set the code. Now we're going to set the code and then have to backtrack and make sure the comp plan policies are consistent with the code. And if we vote against some of the code changes, then it might affect this line. It's just a placeholder. That's all.
Kathy?
I like it the way you have it with it striked out. It's often used as justification to stop anything new or different from happening in a community. And I think it should be struck out.
Let's take a quick vote.
Can I respond to that?
So go ahead, Mike.
That just kind of throws comp plan, the whole blueprint, policy 1.1 out the window. If we say, let's keep it as flexible as possible and don't worry about things like compatibility, which is in the existing comp plan, for us to take a vote, we have a lot of audacity to take a vote and think that this little group of 10, 12, 13, 14, have
15,
the right
15.
to make this call.
Okay, so I'm just going to keep moving on. And that might just be one then that there's going to have to be public comment on in the future regarding striking this one section or one line. And I will see what other policies are in the comp plan that maybe already cover this particular sentence. And sorry to keep moving through this, but we do have a lot to get through today. So I think we did definitions. I don't think there's any more comments on the definitions. So now we're going into the meat of House Bill 2001, which is the residential districts, where we'll see most of our changes. This conversion section here, I didn't highlight, but I just wanted to show Scott because he had mentioned it a couple times to make sure that we address, if you want to convert a house into a duplex, tri, or quad, that you can do so as long as it doesn't increase any nonconformances. So here's our permitted use table. As we know, we have to allow duplexes, triplexes, quads, townhouses, and cottage clusters into the residential zones that all allow residential uses. I did talk to Ethan with the LCD about our urban area reserve, and it does not apply to this area, even though it allows a single family home. The intent of the urban area reserve is a holding zone. And so he brought it to their staff. They were comfortable with us not making any changes to the urban area reserve. So the only changes you should see is to the low, standard, and medium and high density residential zones, and where townhomes weren't permitted or a triplex was a conditional use permit, they are now permitted outright. And this doesn't read very well, but these two little asterisks, that's not an underline, that is actually a strike through. So this is just what we've been working on, and basically permitted these uses in these zones. The setbacks, we have not changed any of the setbacks. We've kept basically our standard setbacks, 5 front or side and rear, 10 for the front, and 20 for garages, except RL has a little bit larger setbacks, and we didn't change any of those. Okay, let me get back down to a highlighted section. All right, so this is where we did do some changes, and this is the lot sizes for the middle housing. Did anybody have comments on this particular section?
Mike?
I think you're muted, Mike.
We just scrolled right past 2.1.300H. Can we go back to that?
Yes.
Because that was what I was referring to in the comp plan changes. Was this ever discussed by the committee to delete this chapter?
Yes, it was, and the majority voted to delete it.
When did this happen?
I can get you the date. I do not know it off the top of my head.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little, this is a short statement, because again, a land use chair has to report now to the association. I'm looking at this saying it's a barrier to development. And did somebody explain why this is a barrier to development in enough specifics, or just a wide brush, oh, well, let's just get rid of it?
Yes, we even looked at an exhibit. So it might have been the one meeting that you weren't at.
I had asked several people of that question. They did not think this was discussed, so that's what led me to raising my hand on this issue.
Okay, well, Dave Johnson was definitely there because he has a lot that's 20,000 square feet and larger. And I believe this was going to affect his lot. I think this was the one. But I will get you the date, and then you can listen to the, and I can send you the meeting minutes as well, so you can listen to the discussion.
I did in fact speak on that day, and you know, I've gone even further in thinking about it, and in my neighborhood of treed and 1980 houses, I could sell this to a developer that wanted to put a Chinese pagoda on it, which would look kind of stupid in my neighborhood. Because it should look like, or at least have some semblance to the rest of the neighborhood, is that a barrier to development?
Well, what the discussion was, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because we've already had a majority vote on it, was that someone can have a large lot and they want to subdivide it, and they are now restricted to much larger setbacks because the lot next to them is 20,000 square feet or bigger. However, the lot that is 20,000 square feet or bigger could build right up to the 5-foot setback. So they have a lot more flexibility than the lot that is subdividing. And then staff has seen in several occasions where this is a barrier because you lose lots because you are now having a 30 to 35-foot rear setback. We worked with the neighborhood associations on this many years ago. The main driver was one particular gentleman, basically wanted to protect his home. He has now sold his home to a developer. So all the lots abutting his property were subject to this, and now that particular property is no longer subject to it. So it's kind of one of those things that probably had good intentions quite a while ago to protect larger properties, where today the intent, I think, is to get more housing on the ground and to remove barriers.
Regardless of what it looks like.
I believe this was near unanimous to vote to get rid of it as well.
Right. Okay,
Okay.
so we're going to keep moving. So we're not going to go back. Sorry to keep rushing through. But the intent is not to go back and do votes on everything. The intent of this one is to make sure if I've missed something, if you see some inconsistencies. Mike had good questions because he wasn't actually at that particular meeting, so he needed some background on it. That's fine, but I don't think we're going to be re-voting on a lot of the changes, particularly the ones that have to do with House Bill 2001. So I'm just going to keep going.
Pauline, I have a question.
Sure.
I know you want to go fast here, but on 2.1400.
Yes.
Am I correct that floor area ratio is being completely deleted from the Bend Development Code as a thing?
Right. So we were going to use the lot coverages and not the floor area ratio, because this only applied to the single family residential developments. And then you had to either comply with either 1, 2, or 3 to even be subject to this particular floor area ratio. And so after the discussion, I think this was a majority vote as well, to delete the section, because I think even like number 3, the perimeter of all new lots, or one of them is if you add on, well, you might buy your house and not realize that you were platted prior to a certain date, and then you want to add on, and now you can't.
Yeah, I just want to clarify.
Oh, okay. Yes, Bill.
So the answer is yes.
Yeah, FAR is going away, and we're going to use lot coverage, and setbacks and height.
So then let me point out that table 2.1.700 has a FAR of 1.1 listed.
Yes.
And it seems like that shouldn't be there.
Okay, well, when we get there, then I'll give the background on that one, because we all talked about the FAR, particularly for RS.
So I'm confused then. Is FAR going away or not?
Okay, Bill. Floor area ratio in 2.1400 is going away, which was only applicable to these particular situations. Floor area ratio for accessory dwelling units is going away. Floor area ratio for duplexes and triplexes in the standard density residential zones is going away. The group did support having a floor area ratio of 1.1 for residential, for the residential zone only. And if I missed other sections, I apologize regarding the floor area ratio.
Pauline. I was just going to say we're way behind at this point. Yeah. So just wanted to kind of give you a time check and talk through, I guess, whether we want to continue having this discussion, even though it means we may not be able to get through all of the items on the list today.
Well, I suppose, I can say we're not having another meeting because this needs to go out on May 3rd. So the more we can keep moving forward, the better. And I don't mind giving background, but again, we're not going to have a whole bunch of dialogue about making changes. So any questions on the lot area and dimensions, or do you see any inconsistencies or where I did something wrong?
Can you just add to your list of what you're sending me, the discussion on the removal of the FAR across the board?
Okay, there were several meetings, so I might just send you all of the recordings.
Don't send me the last one I missed. I take very good notes. If it occurred, it occurred in the last meeting.
Okay, if you can just email me that date, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, just the last meeting.
Lot area and dimension, any comments?
Looks like Moe.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I support Pauline moving through this quickly. You know, we've put so much time into this committee, and I hardly had any time in my capacity to attend this meeting. So, you know, I can't do another meeting, and I hope we can all just agree to keep it moving forward.
Thank you, Moe. Was there any edits to the lot area and dimensions? One thing we did add, which is new, we've always required corner lots to have an extra 5 feet in width. And then looking at the allowances, we can't require that for townhomes. So that's there because of the administrative rules. So that might be something we didn't discuss, it's just required.
So Moe, hand is still up. I can lower it for you if you want, but it doesn't look like we have any other hands, Pauline.
Okay.
There it is. Okay, she carried on. Thank you.
Oh, and then this, I just want to make sure, so I sent this out to staff to review, and one comment came back, which is a good catch on the townhomes. I said the maximum or the minimum lot size may not be greater than 1,500, so that puts a max, and that's not the intent. We're just saying a minimum. So I wanted to show you that I made a change here that the minimum lot size must be at least 1,500. If they want to go larger, they can. The way it was written before, they couldn't. Okay, densities. I reorganized the way the exemptions are written for densities because we're getting quite a few. We have exemptions for maximum, exemptions for minimums, exemptions for both maximums and minimums. So I tried to clean that up so it's easier to read. And then as we know, under the exemptions from maximum densities, you will see duplexes, triplexes, quads, and townhomes in the RH. And then we met with the talked about affordable housing, and those maximums were the multi-unit affordable dwellings were also going to be exempt from the maximums. Was there any comments on this? Bill?
Yeah, I just had a question on number 4. What happened to RM10?
Oh, I can add it. Part of me just wants to take RM10 completely out of the code because we don't have any of it, but I will definitely add that.
I was going to say, didn't we kind of eliminate RM10 except for what already was permitted and on the ground during the UGB expansion? Is that what happened? We redefined sort of minimum and maximum units per acre, and RM10.
There isn't any on the ground, I don't think.
Okay, so then yeah,
no
maybe
RM10.
that change. Okay.
And so good catch. Thanks, Bill. I'll add that. Any other comments? Okay.
No more hands. Carry on.
So this is where we still rely on our maximum lot coverage. And then, as Bill pointed out, we do have floor area ratio. And then I added this exception here because some of our development types don't have maximum lot coverage or floor area ratio, such as small dwelling units. So this just lets a reader know that they can go to chapter 3.8 to see what other requirements are there. So in this case, we kept the lot coverage, except I believe I just moved the exception down for the medium density, so it's a cleaner chart. And then we added the 1.1 for their floor area ratio for the RS. And I think we had a chart where I broke down if we just relied on lot coverage, what that equated to when it came to floor area ratio, and the floor area ratio was much larger than 1.1. So we wanted to at least put some type of cap, if that's the right word, for the RS district. Any comments? Matt?
Yeah, so does that mean on all RS permits that FAR ratio is going to be something that needs to be calculated and on the plans for every permit?
Yep, for RS. Because we took the 0.6 out up above that Bill had highlighted, and then we've taken 0.6 out for the ADUs, and we've taken 0.6 out for duplexes. And so now this will just be 1.1 for all uses.
Gotcha. Okay, I misunderstood previously. I thought we were doing it away. The thought was that it was going to be so, the 1.1 FAR was going to be so large that we were not really ever going to meet it unless it was in a high density situation. So we were just taking it out.
I think in the medium and high, it was even higher FAR, which was so high, but that the actual lot coverages were lower. So we kept lot coverage to control the scale in medium and high, but it was kind of the opposite for RS. And so we added the, kept the lot coverage that we have today and then added the FAR.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I still think it's a little excessive. I don't think, for example, on a 4,000 square foot lot that you're going to have a 4,400 square foot FAR and be able to fit it on that lot with that lot coverage and inside of setbacks, especially when we're looking at only interior area and we're not including the walls on top of that. So I don't ever think that's going to come into play. So it seems excessive to even require those calculations and that extra time spent. But I mean, I don't think it's an issue. I just think it's a little extensive, but.
Thank you, Matt. Mike?
If you have a 4,000 square foot lot, a 45% lot coverage, that is 1,800 square foot of lot coverage times 3. That puts you well over this FAR. That gives you a 5,400 square foot house is possible at for 3 levels. So I have to disagree. You can have, if you eliminate, well, we went from an FAR of 0.6 to 1.1. If you eliminate the FAR for single family, now maybe I'm way off base. Are you saying you're going to keep the 1.1?
Correct. Again, I don't want to make a whole bunch of changes to this draft.
So
we're going through to see what kind of.
Yeah. Okay.
I just thought we had discussed that was going to apply on 3-story dwellings, but on 2-story dwellings and below, it never came into play.
No, we didn't discuss that. But that's something during the public comment or, period that you can bring up. Matt, I understand it'll probably be time consuming to show the 1.1.
I mean, I know that I know our land development department's already drafting a formal response for those public hearings, and I'll just make sure that they include that in there. Again, it's not an issue; it's just excessive to try and apply it or make it a requirement to apply it when we're never going to be able to hit that number anyway. So if it's something where we can get it clarified that, yeah, this comes into play when it's an issue, I think that's the best way to approach it. But yeah, we'll go that route with it.
Okay. Pauline, do we have time for one more question from Bill?
Oh, okay. Thanks,
so
Lynn.
Just for clarification to finish the previous thing. So this 1.1 applies in RS. What types of housing does it apply to in RS?
All types.
All types.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it. I think we're free to carry on.
All right. Building height. We didn't really make any changes here either, similar to setbacks. What we did do in the RM zone, is our medium density, is check out this magic date of December 1998. So in the UAR, RL, RS, and RM10, we're still at 30 feet. And then all of RM is at 35 and RH remains at 45. And there was nothing else added here or changed. Okay. All right, design standards. I think I allocated 10 minutes to this one. So this section, and I'll just walk through it real fast, unless maybe, is there just comments without me reading it? I know hopefully you all have had lots of time to go over this. Karna?
So my question has to do with affordable housing and this a little bit on the density. Is there density bonuses above those heights? for affordable housing as well as
Yes.
in the architectural standards?
There is density bonuses for the height. I believe it's 10%, right, Lynn?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's basically one more floor.
And then they would not be exempt from design standards.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Okay, so again, this only applies to triplexes, quads, and townhomes. This was Scott's suggestion, is to take it out of 3.6 and have it all live in the same section in the residential chapter. So as you went through and saw in 3.6 under the townhomes, duplex, triplex, and quadplex sections, you don't see any garage or front door standards in those sections anymore. They all reside here. And these are, I believe I captured the discussion and what the group voted on. But if I have missed something in this particular section, please raise your hand. I see Bill.
Yeah, I just have a question. So are there any design standards that apply to single family detached and duplexes?
No, we don't have any today to single family detached, so we cannot have any for duplexes.
Right. So, okay.
Looks like that's it for hands for now.
Going once.
I know I'm hesitant to say that sometimes because y'all are a talkative group sometimes, but
okay. All right, I'm just gonna keep going. Just edits there. Did someone say? Okay. Oh, this was just talked by the group here for the reducing the size of a allocated parking spot in a garage to 9 by 18. You'll see this in two parts. I saw Mike's hand go up, and I have a feeling I know what Matt's hand went up for. So Mike, you can go first. Mike, you have to unmute.
Yeah, just real quick, is this one we took a vote because I think there's a lot of concerns that not everybody's vehicle is going to fit in a 9 by 18. It's pretty skinny. So you could have a lot of dwellings where people are parking on the street. Yeah, was this a voted standard?
I imagine it was. I definitely didn't put it in here without consensus. I don't know if we actually raised hands, but we can right now. If the group is in support of keeping this standard of 9 feet by 18 for parking in a garage and carport, please raise your hand.
Well, can we hear from Matt first?
Well, I think Matt might have a comment about windows, but I could be wrong.
That's correct.
I was gonna just clarify that this this standard is a minimum, so somebody could make a bigger garage, right?
Right.
Okay.
okay. So Pauline, can you restate the question that they're voting on one more time, just to be sure?
Yes. Please raise your hand if you're in support of keeping this change, which is allowing a vehicle parking in a dwelling unit, its garage or carport, to be 9 by 18.
Sorry, Pauline, what are we changing from?
9 by 20.
Okay.
We got 9 in favor. Oh, I think 10.
Okay, that's good. And then Matt, I'm just going to go right back up to what I believe you might have a comment. Windows?
Yeah, I just wanted to see where we landed. I know there were some changes to this from when we had discussed it. I mean, all positive changes, I think. I just wanted to make sure everybody had a quick chance to read through that and there was support and everybody was on board with that.
So the changes from the exhibit that we originally reviewed, and I talked to Matt about it, is to make it clear that these areas, which are gabled areas, do not count towards the 15%, that roofs don't count towards the 15%, that posts don't count towards the 15%. It is really just this light gray area that counts towards the 15%. And so 15% of this light gray area would require windows. And when we took the vote on that, the majority supported it. We just cleaned up to make it clear of what counts and what does not count. Moe?
Sorry, that was an accident.
Oh, that's okay. Jesse?
Oh, nope.
All right, Kathy.
Yeah,
Ah,
my only concern is when our engineers do the lateral calculations in terms of shear wall on the face of these units. If that precludes meeting this 15%, is there going to be any kind of exemption for meeting engineering? Because sometimes you can't get this depending on the wind load. I know we don't have earthquakes here, but my experience is it's difficult sometimes to make something like this calculate out. So I'm just hoping that there isn't a conflict with the engineering when it comes to this. It's not like the whole thing would be blank. It's just that maybe one of these windows on the very top is narrower or something. But I am concerned about the practicality of it.
maybe Ethan will have some input because this requirement is out of the model code. So they must have looked into this before they put the 15% into there. And I see Ethan's back.
Yeah, you know, the thing is you might have to put a moment frame in, which is extremely expensive. So
Yeah, it goes against affordable housing for sure.
yeah, is that Scott? Yeah. So that's a real concern. Now I understand you're saying it's in the model code. And this is a good clarification. It's better than it was. But I do think there should be some acknowledgement that we have engineering to deal with. And I see Audrey has her hand up, so I'll be quiet.
Just a quick thing, when I was looking at it, I haven't done all the calcs, but 15% isn't really a whole lot, Kathy. So I'm thinking that if we figure out how much opening that really is, I don't think it's nearly as much as showing on the picture. So I'm not sure that it's going to be an issue.
Thanks, Audrey.
And
Yeah,
then
Pauline, this is Ethan. Sorry for jumping in here. The 15% really was something that is actually pretty common in design standards for kind of a higher level middle housing. And so, you know, that was the number we went with in the model code. If it doesn't work well, then you can go elsewhere.
And
with,
then
with the standard.
Oh, sorry, Ethan. Matt is next.
Yeah, just the rest of my comments. So I wanted to check, Pauline. So in a situation where, I mean, this example doesn't show it, but where we have a garage door on the front, that significantly increases, obviously, wall face area. Does the garage door count, or can we get clarification that the garage door would count as part of that 15% or no?
So it does on D. It says a minimum of 15% of the area of all street-facing facades, including garage facades, must include windows and or doors.
Does the garage door though count as, or does that mean man door, like entry door, as far as being able to count that as a part of that 15%? Because if we're not counting the garage door, then we probably shouldn't include the garage facade either.
So help me understand, Matt. You're saying you would not include the area of like the big roll-up garage door.
No, I would include it. I mean, if you're including the wall area surrounding it, then you should be able to count the door itself as well. I wasn't sure if it includes windows and or doors included the garage door or not.
So if the door has like the little checkered windows up top, those little checkered windows would count. I don't
but
think
not the so is the door included in having it? Should that be a blue area, I guess is my comment, because obviously, yeah, I mean, you don't want full glass garage doors in a lot of cases for privacy and security and all that. So why should we count the solid surface of the doors as part of that area calculation? Should that entire garage door opening be included as blue or exempt facade?
That's a question for the group, because you're right, we didn't talk about the exhibit doesn't address, like, right. If you have a picture of a garage, and what you're saying, you would say the garage would be the light gray. I mean, I'm sorry, the garage would be blue.
Yeah, because if you're counting that, I mean, that's going to significantly increase the amount of windows and man doors that you have to have, and you can't put those in a garage door area, or oftentimes don't want to due to security and safety and that sort of thing. So in my opinion, it should be struck from the calculation.
So really limit it to the wall of like a real wall of a dwelling unit, and a garage door is not considered a wall.
Yeah, and so is there a way to clarify that in some form or fashion, I guess would be the question. At the same time, the garage wings and the foot or two above the garage door, not that it adds a whole lot of additional wall area, but you can't, those areas aren't large enough to throw windows in anyways. So do you just take that whole garage wall face, but then depending on the garage
I wouldn't do that, because my friend had this house built by Polish, and it was a really neat garage because you had the big roll-up garage door, and right next to it was a window. So the third bay actually wasn't a roll-up door; it just had a window.
Yep. Yeah, the storage bay. Yeah, we do that on occasion.
So I would like to encourage windows in that space versus no windows. So I would be in support of removing the actual physical garage door, the roll-up door from the calc, because that is considerable amount of space when we're really talking about getting windows on the dwelling unit itself, not so much on the garage door.
Yeah, because
that does make sense.
Yeah, we have different communities where we are required, in order to hit our glazing, we have to throw glazing in our garage doors, those high windows and whatnot. And then homeowners move in and they replace them, or they black them out, or it basically defeats the purpose at that point. And I don't want us to end up in that same situation.
Okay, thanks, Matt. We need to keep moving. So Scott, and then Moe, and then I understand where Matt's coming from on this, so I'll probably make that change. But Moe?
Oh.
Moe?
Yeah, I'll go, and then Scott maybe. I was gonna say I would not support excluding the garage door from the calculation, because if I totally get where you're coming from the people inside the unit, but for the street facing aspect of it, I think the garage does create so much of a, typically it creates so much of a wall that I wouldn't necessarily want to encourage that to be more blank than it already is.
Any other comments?
I think Scott.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, as far as glazing on the garage door, I don't think any part of the garage door should be able to count as glazing, just because if you shouldn't have something that development code mandates or regulates that you don't need to revisit the development code through some sort of permitting process to change out. Since you don't need a permit to change a garage door, you have what was mentioned earlier. People just can change it. So yeah, it's a separate deal. Anyways.
So Scott, just to make sure I understand you, you're kind of in line with what Matt's saying, is that the garage door would be blue because in your opinion is it can be changed out without a permit.
I don't think a garage should be allowed. I don't think if you put glazing in a garage door, that should be allowed as part of your window.
But would you count the garage? Would the garage in this exhibit be gray or blue?
My opinion, I think it should be gray. I'm not a fan of garages, so I think that if you make it blue, then you have a little bit left of the 15% requirement. The windows get shrunk, and it just becomes more about a garage and a blank wall. So.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Let's do 3 more comments, and then we're going to move on. So Kathy, then Karna, then Matt.
Yeah, no, it should be blue. I agree with Matt. What happens is the garage is going to artificially increase that 15% when really we're talking about the windows on the wall of the building. So I think the direction you were going in initially, Pauline, is the way to go, in my opinion. If somebody chooses to put glass in their garage door, great. But if you're going to make it blue, then don't count the windows in the garage door towards that window. Just make it blue. It's exempt, and we're just focusing on windows into the actual livable space.
Parna? Thank you, Kathy.
I'm with Pauline and Kathy on this. Otherwise, you're going to have a whole bunch of windows that will take you away from the affordable housing issue. Windows are very expensive and it's hard to get them right now. I just think it's a bad idea. I think it needs to be blue.
And Matt.
Yeah, Scott, your question or your response, I see where you're coming from, and I get it. I mean, garage doors as a rule, especially with affordable housing, are not the most attractive thing on the planet. I think we all agree on that 100%. But yeah, I think, the fact that you brought up where if there is glazing in that garage door and it's being used to meet the glazing requirement, and a buyer then decides to swap it out after move-in, it's a situation where that would technically be against code, and they would be required to go through some sort of permit revision process to add glazing somewhere else if that building is going to stay compliant, and that's not going to happen. The typical homeowner is just going to do it, and they're not going to worry about the repercussions of it. It's just going to open a whole can of worms. So I'm definitely in support of blue in this case.
And then Moe?
Oops, I would just request that if we are going to count the garage door as blue, my concern would be that, then it would actually be encouraging a garage door facing the street, because then you would have to put in less windows, and, I understand that they are expensive, and like Karna mentioned. So is there any way, I guess, well, no, now that I'm thinking aloud, that would reduce the overall amount of space, so the 15% would be smaller. Okay.
You could maybe say that only a certain amount of blue can be attributed to the garage door or something like that. I mean, I kind of agree with what Moe's saying. I think it's a self-inflicted wound. Garage doors are something that you put in as a design element or as a part of the program. City doesn't require them. So saying, well, hey, I put this garage door in, now I can't meet these other requirements, you're making things unaffordable. Well, you don't necessarily have to put a garage in. So that's.
Well, and
that's Scott and Moe, just because you know how I feel about garages. I am pleased, though, to say that we are at least getting a window requirement that we don't have today. We don't have any window requirements. And I have a picture, if I was to flip my screen over to my PowerPoint again and show you a fourplex in Portland that has not one window on the front. And so to know that that building would actually have to provide 15% window is a step in the right direction. And I understand where you're feeling about the garage doors, but I think it's a win for everybody if we get a window standard that we don't have today, and then take out the garages and really count the windows towards the livable space. So I think we're just going to go to a vote to keep the window standard, and I expect everyone to support the window standard when we get to public hearings, because I like the window standard, but to make garages blue. So if you're in support of making garages blue, please raise your hand.
There's 8, so that's our majority.
8.
Oh, 9 at the end. 1, 2.
All right, so we're going to keep moving. And Scott and Moe, I do appreciate your opinions on garages. And Matt, I really hope that you support this window requirement, since we've added garages to this.
And then just a quick reminder while Pauline's getting situated to take down your hand unless you have a new question.
All right, so I think we got through, unless there's something I passed through too quickly, make sure you let me know, but we didn't really make any changes there. We talked about parking. Oh, this is just some cleanup clarification.
Pauline?
Yes.
Just on that parking thing, you know, Moe kind of brought this up and we breezed over it, but the wording in there is confusing. When it says maybe 9 by 18 feet, does that mean, I think it means a minimum, but you know, may is like granting permission. I don't think it's clear.
Okay, I will make it a minimum. Good point. Lots of changes in chapter 2.7. Colin and myself met with DLCD, Ethan, to go over what is really required for these existing master plans. Those are changes that you see throughout this whole chapter of 2.7. What I did want to highlight, though, is these additions here. And this is out of the Oregon administrative rules. And my understanding, talking with Ethan, that any of the master plans are adopted before January 1st of 2021 may allow a net residential density of at least 8 dwelling units per acre. Some of them have caps. Those caps have been removed, and then they may allow 8. We're not saying you have to allow 8 dwelling units per acre, but if for some reason they want to up their density in these existing master plans, they can to 8. And then this second part is my understanding that once a master plan has been developed, a lot or parcel, and someone wants to come in like 10 years down the road and either make it a duplex or a triplex, which may not have been permitted in that master plan, the development code would allow you to do a middle housing on that lot in an existing master plan. Kathy?
Yeah, this is great. I'm hoping that they'll do that, but I'm thinking 8 units an acre is awfully low. I would have recommended 13. I'm not sure where the 8 comes from.
It is out of the, I believe, Oregon administrative rules. And to give you a sense of a master plan community, Northwest Crossings is at 5.5. So to get to 8 is significantly more.
Yeah, but how about Petrosa? That's quite a bit higher, isn't it?
Matt, would you know Petrosa's, or I could ask Joey, but I don't know that they.
Sorry, say again.
Do you know what the overall density is for Petrosa master plan?
I don't, but I could see if I can pull it up in a document while we're continuing.
Okay, and they have some comprehensive plan policies that they have to comply with for the mix of housing too.
Yeah,
so
it's a little bit more complex for sure.
Yeah, but we can get back to you on that, Kathy. Any other comments? Okay, so I'm not going to go through each of these master plans. Do you know that we've reached out to some of the applicants that were part of these master plans, like Dale with Brooks Resources, Joey with Polish, Tia with some of them. They were applicants, so because they paid and put these master plans in the code, we just thought for them to know the changes that are being proposed within their master plans, keep them apprised of the changes so that they're not surprised. And then half the document.
I know in Discovery West, there's going to be like some live work townhomes.
Yes.
They were thinking that would be the only place where people could have a short-term rental, but since it's a townhome and not a plex, well, I guess it doesn't. Yeah.
It's okay. On that one, Mo, we added that those particular live work townhomes can be short-term rentals because they'll be above, hopefully like a coffee shop and opening up onto that commercial plaza.
Okay.
So check the Discovery West edits.
Okay.
And then we also said in that particular one that those live work townhomes don't have to front a street, similar to how Petrosa and maybe Easton's master plans, they may open up to open space versus onto a public street. So there are a couple changes to Discovery West that you might want to look at for those live work townhomes.
Yeah, I think they're doing a good job with that. So thanks.
Okay, this is just verifying again that we can't require an extra 5 feet for the width of a townhome. But they will have.
Just a sec. You just skipped through a whole bunch of pages, and this is just a question for clarification, so you don't get bombarded with emails. That entire 2.7 includes all these overlays. As I go through, some of the siding standards are much different from the siding standards that we're setting, let's say, in section 2.1. So
right.
That's why it's okay then to not change the standards in these overlays to be consistent throughout the town, throughout the community. It's a clarification. I'm not.
So it's this part that we just went over, Mike. At the very beginning of 2.7 and out of the Oregon administrative rules, there's these dates. So January 1st. If you have an existing master plan, you're not required to change it. The only thing you are required to do is to allow at least 8 dwelling units per acre. And then in the future, when those lots are developed and redeveloped, then they have to allow the types of units. Other than that, we weren't required to make any changes, except if quadplexes were considered multifamily. I did go in and clarify that quadplexes are now an allowed use, because if we didn't, then they would never have a way to get to 4 units, because multifamily is now defined for 5, and then triplex is up to 3. So there's no more 4 units.
Okay, I understand now. I just wanted to be sure I understand when you said it the first time that I was reading it the right way. So thank you.
Yeah. And like I said, we've talked to the applicants on all these master plans, so they're aware of the changes, especially treating duplexes the same as single family dwelling units, which many of the master plans did not do. And we did have to require that. Sorry, it's like a lot of the document. All right, so now we are in chapter 3.1. I'm just going to the highlighted sections, recognizing we have about a half hour left. Okay, parking. As many of you probably saw, we had our council work session. I believe it was last Wednesday on the 21st, and presented the proposed parking changes to the council so that they know what is coming through the draft for House Bill 2001. So for the duplex triplexes, the recommendation is no minimum parking requirements. For quadplexes, it was the 2 spaces per development in the RL, and then all other zoning districts was 1 space per development. And then townhomes is 1 space per dwelling unit. And then we referred them on to chapter 3.8, because that is where the cottage clusters live, as well as cottage housing and other types of housing developments which have their own parking requirements. I see Sarah's hand.
Hi, yes, Pauline, I just wanted to check. I was looking for where the on-street credit section is. I believe it is page 89J2. Is that the only place in the code where that on-street parking credit?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's right below this chart. It would actually live, unless it'd be right below the parking table.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see it there. I only see it on page 89, and I had a question about J2.
Oh, so you're jumping ahead into cottage clusters, I think. So
it was actually, I was looking for the section about townhouses and on-street parking credits because I couldn't find it.
So it's not in this draft because we're not making any changes to it. What you want to look at is in chapter 3.3, A, and then I believe it's either A or B, and then you go, there's this long table of parking standards that looks like this. Right below the table in the development code, you will see the standard for the on-street parking credit.
Okay, because I have in my notes that we had voted against an on-street parking credit for townhomes on the February 17th.
So I had that in my notes that we voted against it for the cottage cluster developments.
Yeah, I have it for both in my notes, so I just wanted to bring it up.
Okay, I will go back to, and what meeting date was that?
February 17th.
Okay, I will re-listen to those minutes.
Okay, thank you so much.
And then Pauline, are you ready for two more? We have Mike, then Scott.
Yep. Mike?
Yeah, I just want to be sure. I know several meetings ago, you said you were at a table parking and bring it up at the council in a work session. I listened very closely to the live session and I've looked at the recording several times. You have made a point here that you showed it to council, but the other shoe didn't drop. There was no actual feedback from the council one way or another on whether they had an opinion on this. So I guess, are you assuming that because they didn't say anything, they're okay with this? Or that's just, you're just giving this as an FYI?
Hey, guys, I think Jenna joined us. And so Jenna, I don't know if you're even listening to all this, but just because we have a counselor on the line, she may wish to answer this question instead of staff if she's there. I'm gonna wait and see.
I'm here.
Yep. Hi.
Hi.
This is a way to put you on the spot like that.
So the question is whether we specifically looked at this one parking space per dwelling unit for townhomes.
Well, Jenna, we at the work session, I showed the table for duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, townhomes, and the cottage clusters. So basically the proposed parking requirements for the middle housing for House Bill 2001.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And whether or not council was interested in moving forward with those, even though it wasn't a public, I mean, it was just to inform council, but whether or not to increase those, decrease them, or just move forward with the way they were.
Well, I think there was going to be more discussion in the community building subcommittee, specifically around parking. And we didn't want to get this on, this, which was kind of like, moving forward, mixed up with our later discussion in the work session on parking. But I think everybody was kind of like, keyed into that, to the parking aspect of that table you showed us. And I would think, yeah, somebody would have spoken up if they had wanted to see something different there.
Thank you, Jenna. Scott?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, when we went through this and we would go through duplexes, triplexes, then we go through cottage clusters and we go through townhomes, and one of the kind of asks early on was maybe we can see how our decisions are consistent throughout these different development types. And one of the things that stuck out for me was the no on-street exception for cottage clusters. And I was hoping we would talk about that today, because I don't understand why. I was kind of blown away that we got rid of that and for that particular type of development, because to me it seems, I mean, on-street parking bonus, I don't know. It was weird that was applied, and it was weird also that it was only applied to the one type of development. And so
that's what I recall, is it was a majority vote on the cottage clusters.
It was 1-by-1 vote, I believe, and there were people missing during that meeting, because I remember thinking, wow, if X person was gone or X person was here, and it just seemed, I don't really know how that happened. I don't understand why, because I think when we're talking about affordability and we're talking about what type of developments and giving design options and all that stuff, having one type of development not account for any type of on-street parking, it seems weird. It seems a little asymmetrical. And
yeah, anyways, that is the only one in the city really that will not get a credit. And that is something the majority did vote on. I know maybe it was the majority. So, and I'm not proposing to change any of the parking requirements. I think this one was presented to council as what is moving forward. I didn't hear from the council to make changes, and then just go through the process. And like she said, we'll probably be meeting with the community building subcommittee. I'm not sure when they are actually starting to meet, if it's going to be ahead of the public hearings or prior to. So I need to find out more information on that. Any other comments? Just for the sake of time. Okay.
Nothing else.
And I will double check the attached townhome note on street parking. That does not sound familiar to me, but I will listen to the minutes again from the February 17th meeting. I recall what Scott said, and it just applied to the cottage cluster development, but I'll double check that for sure. Kathy?
Yes, hi. Matt just provided a table for his zoning summary, and it appears to me that they're just under 11 units to the acre, unless I've calculated that wrong. And that's why I'm saying 8 seems low. If that's a maximum that's allowed, it just seems like we should be higher, and if they want to go higher, they can. So
it's a may. They may go to, I think, at least 8.
So as long as they could go more if they chose to is the thing. Because I think Petros is a great example of where we should be going in terms of the mix of unit types. And if they're at almost 11 units to the acre, it just seems like we don't want to limit these other plans to 8 units an acre if they chose to go higher. I'm not saying that we're asking them to go.
They may. So I'm just going to keep going really fast, but right here on the screen, it says may allow a net residential density of at least 8 dwelling units per acre. At least.
Okay. Excellent.
They can go higher. And really the comp plan policies are pretty specific on the mix of housing types that are provided and percentages. And we removed density caps for some of those uses too. So they can go 8 or higher if they wanted to.
Okay. Thank you, Pauline.
Oh, no problem. So I'm going to go down because we are going to finish today. Working. Okay, that's the same thing. Okay, so this is chapter 3.6 where Bill has his hand up. Bill?
Yeah, I was a little surprised, I guess, to see this change in the square footage maximums for ADUs. I don't remember discussing it. I don't see how it's connected to HB 2001. I don't know if I'm for it or against it, but I was surprised to see it here.
So we definitely discussed this. And the reason being is that we allow now a duplex on every single lot that allows a single family dwelling. So why restrict a ADU to a certain size based on their lot size if they can just do a duplex of any size? And so the thought was being it's still accessory to the primary dwelling. So instead of limiting it to 600 on a 6,000 square foot lot, do the 800 regardless of the lot size, because you can do a duplex now on a 4,000 square foot lot.
Well, I guess it begs the question of why limit it to 800?
So House Bill 2001, the actual statute has limitations for, oh, maybe I'm thinking of cottages. Never mind. Sorry. Apologies. Ignore everything.
You're right that cottages have a footprint maximum of 900 square feet.
Oh my goodness.
But HB 2001 doesn't address ADUs at all with respect to middle housing. So again, I don't know if I'm opposed or in favor of it, but it does sort of beg the question, I don't know, where did 800 come from? Why should that be the maximum? Why not 900?
So I think in 2016, we updated the code to even push from 6 to 800. And that was challenging back then to get to 800. I think the thought is that they are accessories, so they don't have parking requirements, which now duplexes won't either, if that gets approved. And then there's a reduction in fees because the idea is that they are smaller unit. Duplexes fees are higher. I believe the other one is sidewalks. I don't believe ADUs, because they are small in scale, don't require sidewalks, where a duplex does have to put it in if it's within 600 feet. So there are some bonuses, I guess you would say, by doing an ADU. You just are building on the smaller scale versus a large duplex.
Okay, those sound like reasonable reasons.
Kathy?
Yeah, I thank you, Mike, for pointing that out, because honestly, 800 is a weird size, honestly. 900 works really well for a 2-bedroom. And 800 is not quite big enough to fit 2 bedrooms, but it's awfully large for being a 1-bedroom. And so if there was the ability to go to 900, it would be a lot easier to design for. Just putting it out there, 800 is an odd number to design for. So
I appreciate it, Kathy, but I don't really see us changing that number at this point because we really are focused on the House bill ones. We just wanted to make this one change.
Yeah.
To allow them to all be 800.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm just pointing
All right.
it out practicality wise.
So I'm going to keep moving. Affordable housing, I think we all remember talking, for those of you at the meeting, that the multi-unit affordable housing, deed restricted, is no maximum density. So now the density bonuses for affordable housing that would apply to single family detached dwellings, middle housing, cottage development housing, and manufactured homes. So if a developer chose to do a certain amount of affordable units, then they get this density bonus. But they're still subject to what?
Sorry, you were missing a D on the end of manufactured.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's type stuff I'm looking for. Thank you, Lynn. And then parking, you may recall we talked about parking reductions specifically for developments that are for special population or senior developments. And then we added definitions for special population and senior developments. And then the parking here would go from 1 down to 0.5 per unit. All right, townhomes, just clean this up based on our discussions. We are not going to have a limit to the amount of townhomes that can be attached anymore. And then the garage door requirements are changed. They now reside in chapter 2.1. The driveway approaches, that didn't change. We are pretty flexible on those. I believe the model code almost mirrored them. Engineering wanted to just clarify that the minimum driveway width for each unit is 10 feet. And that's it on townhomes. Comments, Sarah?
Yeah, right there on the H, duplex, triplex, quadplex. I don't remember ever discussing removing the trees, the open spaces, the parking, or I mean the enclosed storage area. That entire section, I don't recall us ever talking about.
I need to look at that. That's a good clarification. So it does have to go away for duplexes.
So HB 2001 says that duplexes cannot require enclosed storage area or trees.
Right, because we don't require that on a single family detached dwelling. And then I'm not sure that these comply with the siting and design standards that are allowed.
Okay, I definitely struggle with removing all of this in H. It just seems excessive.
Oh, Ethan, you're still here. So I understand the duplex part, but for the rest of the, well, it'd be triplexes, quadplexes weren't subject to these standards to begin with. Is storage requirements considered a siting or design standard? Street trees, what else? Oh, patios.
So that's a good question. So these are things that likely fall into like a design standard type definition. So the city certainly can have standards that protect trees or require storage areas or anything like that. The city would have to go through the alternative siting and design process, basically just saying that the balancing those additional potential costs of providing those things with the overall intended public benefit of a public good that it achieves, and just basically making the case that those are still reasonable.
And you can only make that case for triplexes and quads, not duplexes, right? Or can you?
That's correct. Yeah, for duplexes, different animal in terms of if you're not applying those to single family detached, then.
Okay, I just see us taking away both parking and bike storage.
Bill?
Yeah, I had a different comment on page 75 and 76. It seems like there's an inconsistency here. Near the top of 75, item 2, driveway approach. Duplexes may have a maximum of 2 driveway approaches, and a triplex and quad may have 3. But then if you scroll down,
Yep.
To
I
C,
said 4.
it says you can
Okay.
have 4, but
Yep.
but even there, it says it can't exceed 32 feet. If a driveway has to be a minimum of 10 feet, which is what item 3 says a few paragraphs below, you can't get 4 10-foot driveways in 32 feet.
Well, this is the approach is 32 feet. So, you know, some approaches are narrower and then they open up to wider driveways. It would get you there.
You're saying each of the 4 approaches can be 32 feet? What does C mean?
And I got this out of, I think, Petrosa's master plan. I'll revisit that. So they can have 4 driveway approaches, just like this one can have 3, but the total of the 4 approaches cannot exceed 32.
But 32 divided by 4 is 8.
So you may have approaches that are, unless we have a minimum standard, and I'll run it by engineering because they approve this standard. So you have an approach that's 8 that opens up onto a 10-foot driveway. I'll double check with engineering.
It seems confusing. Or
other comments?
You could have a driveway that's shared for a little while, like if the garage is in the back or something like that. Mm-hmm. And where there's shared driveways between 2 units, between 2 separate kind of developments, and then there's garages in the back. So that's probably what that is.
We have Kathy, then Matt.
And we only have about 8 minutes.
Let Matt go first.
Real quick, I just wanted to clarify that question on that driveway width. We had pushed for more than 32, but were rejected at the city level going any wider than that. So we had hoped to get that into something that was workable to be all 4, you know, so that you didn't have to, for example, start and then meander over or something like that. But we were not allowed to do that. 32 is as much as we were able to get approved. So that's why we went with 32 in Petrosa.
Thank you, Matt. Kathy?
Yeah, it is a workable thing. You have to have enough depth to maneuver. I would just like to assure people it can work. So.
And then Dave?
I have an 8-foot entry that opens onto a 40-foot driveway, and I can park 5 cars there. So the entryway doesn't have any drawback to what you can do with the parking spaces after you go through the entryway on the street.
Yeah, as long as you have the depth to do it.
I just want to keep going to see what else we have left. I don't feel like it's a lot. And then there's one other thing I would need to address if we have time. So temporary housing, I think we all know the council gave us direction to require no parking minimums for temporary housing. That's why you see this here. And then, I think we do. So shared courts is moving out of the infill section and into just a regular type of alternative development type. Shared courts are no longer required on a maximum of 1.1 acres. They are now limited to townhouses. And then I tried to address the comments for shared courts that had to do with arterials, fences, and entryways. Was there any comments on the shared courts? I don't even know where they're at. I think I jumped ahead, so I'll go back, but comments on the shared courts? Okay, and then if you do,
Sorry, it looks like Bill has a hand up, but I'm not sure if that's still from previously.
Bill?
I have a question on the small dwelling unit development.
Okay, I will go there right now. Okay, I think I'm in it. And there's one cleanup.
One more page, page 79, item C, maximum density. It says the maximum density is rounded up and duplexes are not exempt. I'm a little
Right.
confused there. If small dwelling units are single family homes, you know, or whatever you're calling them now, single unit, single dwelling units, why doesn't HB 2001 require that duplexes be allowed on those?
So we're treating duplexes and single family dwelling units the same. And this is alternative site development standards. So there's the option to go with the regular development standards where duplexes are exempt. However, if you'd like to go on a much smaller lot, 1,500 square feet instead of 4,000, you can do this alternative development, and then you are limited to how large the unit can be. And we calculate density differently. So in order to calculate density differently, you have to have maximums. And I've ran this by Ethan too.
So it's okay to it's okay to exempt. This statement passes muster with the state. Is that what you're saying?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Oh, and then one thing on here too, I struck out something by accident, and I shouldn't have, where the on-street parking spaces for small dwelling unit developments. We never talked about it. That wasn't proposed to be changed. Not sure why it was struck out. So I unstruck it for better term. T-courts, that's existing. Just took out the floor ratio requirement reference because that's gone. Shared courts, like I said, we relocated it to just a 3.8 development alternative. So I'm going to scroll through that really fast. Courtyards. Oh, because courtyards is a single family development, we had to add it to low density residential district as well. Today it's conditional use permit, but it's a house. And we allow them everywhere. So we added it there, and you have to allow duplexes there too. Outright permitted. Bill?
Yeah, I have a couple of statements here that haven't sort of fit anywhere else because we breezed over definitions. Why don't we just call townhomes and not single unit attached parentheses townhome? It just seems unnecessarily wordy and confusing. And the other thing is, I find it consistently confusing now to distinguish between courtyard dwelling unit developments, or I'm sorry, cottage housing developments and cottage cluster developments. And I would propose that we rename the original existing cottage housing development as a bungalow court. That's what they were originally called in Pasadena, which is where the concept developed. If you Google the term, it's used interchangeably with cottage court or, you know, cottage cluster. Since the state has appropriated the term cottage cluster, it just seems like it would be clearer for everybody going forward to have a different name. So just a proposal. It's not a major issue, but it's just confusing, and I think it's going to cause more confusion going forward.
Okay, I'll look into that, see how much time I have to devote to making those changes throughout the code, but I will definitely look into that. I agree, it is confusing for sure. And then townhomes, good question. I will look into that as well. I'm gonna keep going just because we're out of time. I'm hoping you can hang in with me for at least 10 more minutes. I understand if you can't. We did courtyard, cottage clusters. Just seeing if there's any other changes to cottage clusters. I did clean up after the planners, I told you I sent out for their review. It was very repetitive when we were talking about the lot sizes and dimensions, and then I talked about dimensions again. So when you see the next draft go out, you'll see the same information is there, but it is just not repetitive and cleaned up. But same requirements. So I just wanted to highlight that that's been cleaned up. Bill, and then Jesse.
So on the top of page 88, it says there has to be 6 feet between building footprints on cottage clusters. I went back and looked on the cottage housing developments. It has to be 6 feet between eaves. And I don't know what it should be, but that seems inconsistent and weird.
Well, I try not to dive into too many changes to the other one because that's an existing code. Where is the, oh, under setbacks maybe? Oh,
The top of page 88. Oh, I'm sorry, it's the next one, top of page 89, I guess. I'm looking at the page number.
if this is more flexible, I'll probably move it over to the cottage developments too, which I think it is. I think we all talked about that.
Yeah, I don't know what it should be, but it seems like it should be consistent.
Pauline, it works with the building code and it is more flexible.
Okay, then I'll move it over. Let's go with Jesse, then Matt.
Pauline, I just had a question on the RL zoning and the minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. It seems like when you sent me that one section of the code, though, it also said if they're on their own lot, right, then it's, so I guess my question is, if you were subdividing a lot that was, say, 40,000 square feet, you'd have 4 10,000 square foot lots, and then you'd have, I don't know how many, say five cottages on those lots. Those would all then have to be sold together and rented. But was there also something in there that said if they're on their own individual lots, then that
right, so
10,000 square feet is?
You're close. So the development site, before you do anything, has to be a minimum of 10,000 in the RL. And then when you go down to creating the little cottages, they do not, and it's in number 2, there's no minimum lot size. We're just talking about before you go find an RL property, just make sure the parent development site is 10,000. And then if you want to create ownership lots, there's no minimum lot size within that 10.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're on the right track, and it's just like the other ones that we do, the cottage developments, but it's in number 1 and number 2 under E.
I got it. And then this code is the only one that we have RL, or it sounded like the RL.
This is the only one that is RL.
Okay, thank you.
Next, let's see, maybe Kathy or Matt.
Yeah, quick question. This is something that came to me from an outside source here over on my end. So quick question on the triplex, quadplex, and townhomes design standard. I know we removed duplexes because duplexes have to be treated same as single family. Right. So how does that work with townhomes? Because a townhome is basically attached single family. So if we can't apply it to duplexes, how can we apply it to other single family in the terms of townhomes?
And Ethan, if he's still here, can correct me, but the way the administrative rules are written in the bill is just very clear that duplexes have to be treated the same as, I believe it's single family detached, and then townhomes were allowed to be treated just like triplexes and quadplexes differently.
Yeah, Pauline, I can jump in here. So you're right. The actual language of House Bill 2001 specifically talks about single-family detached homes and how that is kind of the trigger or the threshold for allowances and how what this is all based on. And then, kind of 2 other points there. The duplex requirement is that it's allowed on every single lot and parcel where single-family detached is allowed. Other middle housing types, what we call higher level middle housing types, can be treated differently than those 2 other housing types within the bounds of unreasonable cost and delay, of course.
Thank you, Ethan. I'm glad I wasn't wrong on that. Let's see, Jesse, your hand's still up? Maybe. Okay, now it's down. Okay. So we've reviewed pretty thoroughly the cottage clusters. So if you have other comments as I scroll through, just let me know, but I'm just going to keep scrolling for the sake of everyone's time. Okay, still cottage. Sorry if this is making you dizzy. Okay, shared courts. So this is what used to be limited to 1.1 units. It allowed different uses, but it was really truly for infill, where this is no longer considered infill. It can be on any size parent site. The uses would be townhomes and ADUs. And then basically the same standards that we had before with a little bit more flexibility, which I think I highlighted. Exceptions to the front doors when you abut an arterial street, or we talked about when the development site frontage is 75 feet or less. And then there was one other one, that you may actually have a wall in your front setback if you are on an arterial. Any comments on this? Okay. Oh, this is, we talked about how, I think we did. I'm adding changes. This was asked by Planning Commission, I believe the City Council too, and the NLA, to look into requiring our mailed notices to not only the property owner, but also to the property address. So I've been working with our IT department, just trying to figure out a system for us to be able to do this. We're still looking into it, but I do think we are going to be able to do it. So I've added the language that requires the notices to also go to the current address. And then, and then in the same chapter will be that one requirement that we talked about on the PowerPoint of the public meetings being good for 6 months. And then chapter 4.2, this is how we process single family detached duplexes, triplexes, well, duplexes and single family and ADUs today. But with the House Bill 2001, we have to also process triplexes, quadplexes, and cottage cluster developments the way we process single family and duplexes, what we call type 1 minimum development standards review. There is some approval criteria when sidewalks are required, when they're not required, whereas today a triplex would normally have to always put in sidewalks and quadplexes. Now they will not have to, only if there's sidewalks within 600 feet. And let's see if there's anything else. No, that was it. So I am available. Sorry, and I really appreciate getting through all this today. And I do apologize for having to rush through this, but it's important that we have several weeks in May to be able to let other people review this final draft. And there'll still be changes, of course, based on feedback and Planning Commission work sessions and public hearings. But this is the draft that I will make the changes that we talked about today and get it out for to the interested parties to review. But I do have time till about 3:30 if anybody wants to stick on if you have questions. I won't make any changes because the group won't be here. But if anybody has questions or anything, I can definitely stay on for a little bit longer and answer any questions you may have because we went through it so quickly. Just no changes would take place. So I want to thank you all for your time. If you have to go, I totally understand. And then next week, probably Monday or Tuesday, you will be seeing the draft go out and you will be included on the list of people for your review.
Pauline, I have to drop off, unfortunately, but did want to reiterate the thanks to this group. It's been an incredible amount of time that y'all have dedicated to this work, and just really, really appreciate the good discussion and differing views, even though that was hard at times. Just, I think that's how we get a good product in the end. And so just really a lot of appreciation for this group. Thank you for all you've done.
Yes, Lynn, definitely. Bill?
Is it okay to send you an email with some other like edits, just
Yes.
like typos and, you know, where you didn't catch word changes and that sort of thing?
Yes, please. I really appreciate those kind of emails. Okay. So thank you. Okay, well, if you do have to go, thank you again for all the meetings that we've had, I believe 10, to go over this. And I appreciate it when I send out the draft, feel free to share it with people so that more eyes are on it, to provide high level feedback and comments on it, and just to get it out there so people are aware of the potential changes that are coming their way. So thank you very, very much for your time and for working through this quickly for me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Pauline.
Thanks, Scott.
Pauline, I got some separate after meeting follow-up questions for you here.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure nobody else was sticking around just to hear that.
Did anybody else who's on here have questions about anything besides Matt? Scott, did you? All right, Matt, I'll stop recording too. Hold on real fast.